Hello, this is my leadership presentation by me. Today I am going to be talking about 10 surprising things successful leaders do differently, and just a few stories on how I believe this is true, and times I have personally seen this. Number 1. Great leaders close their open door policy. I know, you were thinking, what? Why would this be a good idea? But let me explain. Open door policies are passive ways to facilitate communication and do more harm than good. They make deep work and strategic thinking virtually impossible for the manager. Worse, research shows that half of all employees won't go through the open door with problems or ideas because they fear repercussion. An open door policy doesn't empower employees. It encourages them to be more impatient and less resourceful. If someone knows that he or she can interrupt you whenever they have a question, there is less of a need or incentive to try to solve problems on his or her own self. An open door policy makes it harder for a leader to focus. I know I have done this. I thought if I go through the open door, I'll be punished. One time I thought something we did was a bad idea, and it made no sense, and I wanted to share it with my supervisor. But I was scared if I told him, I would be blackballed or looked bad upon. Recently, the VSC or the RO, I don't recall, but we have implemented a suggestion box that is anonymous. And I told my grief this way. I think this is a good idea, and they answered it anonymously. It's time to close your door and open your calendar. Recurring weekly one-on-one meetings are a far better way to proactively facilitate communication and pre-schedule office hours. Perhaps an hour each day is the best way to facilitate time-sensitive communication. I believe having weekly meetings and or even one-on-one meetings is better. It will make you as an employee feel more comfortable to speak up. Before the pandemic, we would have the open door policy, and if I had an issue or a problem, I would keep it to myself. Since we are in a virtual world, my supervisor would have weekly or bi-weekly meetings, and I noticed that the more we had them, the more the quiet workers would vent, or just talk in general. I could see we were communicating better virtually than in person. Number 2. Great leaders don't bring smartphones into meetings. If you use your smartphone in meetings, research from the University of Southern California's Marshall School of Business suggests your colleagues probably think you're being rude or unprofessional. 75% of those surveyed thought it was inappropriate to read or write text or emails in meetings, and 22% think it's inappropriate to use the phone at all in any kind of meeting. And in the study titled "The Pen is Mightier Than the Keyboard," researchers discovered that when it comes to comprehension and memory, taking notes by hand was far superior to typing notes on a keyboard. To avoid distraction, to remain mindful and present, and to maximize recall, a leader should leave their smartphones in their desk and use good old-fashioned pen and notebooks in their meetings. I will admit 2 stories I have about using my smartphone. When we were in the office during a meeting that we had, I believe this was during the NCAA men's basketball tournament, I would sneak and check my phone to see the scores. My supervisor had caught me and mentioned how I was distracting others in front of everybody. I turned so red and apologized. I could see how it was rude and unprofessional. Recently, we had a virtual meeting with no microphones on. We were all muted, no cameras on, and because of that, I was on my phone, I was on Snapchat, looking at memes during the meeting. I couldn't tell you anything from that meeting. I had remembered nothing from that meeting, and I had to ask other coworkers to fill me in on what happened. This was very unprofessional and not what a leader would do. If you are trying to be or want to be a leader, you will not use your phone. You will be engaged and set an example. Number 3, great leaders have no rules. I know it sounds crazy. I'm not saying act crazy and go wild, but these are out of the box ideas that successful leaders do. Every time we bump into a rule, it takes away a chance for us to make a choice or a decision, and it becomes your company, not mine. Rules crowd out conversation. Managers become rule enforcers instead of leaders. Instead of rules, have standards or guardrails that are rooted in company values. Use these standards as topics of discussion, starting with recruiting and onboarding and continuing throughout the employee's life cycle. And when someone deviates from the values, the standards, well, that's a time for some feedback. That's a coachable moment. Now, this might not work in the VA, but if you are going to a private sector, it might be a great tip. I'm going to share a story, and I'm not bad-mouthing anyone or anything. I had a supervisor, and the supervisor would have meetings when things changed. His go-to motto was, "I don't make the rules, I'm just here to inform you and enforce them." When I would leave those meetings, I would be like, man, this guy isn't a leader at all. He really is a rule enforcer. I never felt I could voice my opinion to change anything because to me, he had no power at all. He was just enforcing the rules. It made me feel as though I was being babysat instead of having a leader. Number 4, great leaders are likable and not liked. Are you a people pleaser? It's normal to want to be liked, but it's a problem if you have a need to be liked. A need to be liked causes managers to withhold direct, constructive feedback. It can lead to delayed decision making in the hopeless quest to get universal agreement. You don't need to act like a jerk at work, but realize that your team members don't need another friend. They need a leader who will coach them and advance their career, who will make them the sometimes tough decisions to protect the team or advance the company. Replace your need to be liked with the need to lead right. And replace your need to be liked by everyone with the realization that if you are liked by your family and close friends, that's enough. Research suggests that likership is not the opposite of leadership. Instead, being liked is probably one of the key ingredients in the effective leadership formula. This means that well-liked leaders can expect their coworkers to consider them as authentic, transformational, ethical, and not abusive. Reading this, it really made me think, be likable, not liked. I remember in high school, we were in a group project, and this guy wanted to be the leader. He said, "I'll be the leader," and everyone, including myself, we were okay with that. I don't really remember much. I could just tell you that he wanted to be liked by everyone, and everyone took advantage and walked all over him. He did a majority of the schoolwork himself because he wanted to be liked. Just thinking about the great leaders are likable, not liked, I think of our director, Chris Norton. I have chatted with him a few times, and he's a smart man, and his personality to me is likable. I could see he likes what he's doing and has passion for our job. I do not see him wanting or seeking approval of anyone, and to me, he is a great leader. Number 5, great leaders lead with love. Yes, I say leaders should love their team members. It's compassionate love. It's the warmth, connection, and caring we feel for humankind, not the passionate kind of love. We aren't talking about the love like you love your boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife. We are talking about the caring kind of love. Leaders who care about their team members and show it achieve high employee engagement and business outcomes. Leading with love means knowing and caring about what inspires and empowers people. It's about caring enough to know what is important to them and helping them succeed. Leading with love is the key to leadership success. To lead effectively, you must love the people you are leading. Research shows that people who work in a culture where they feel free to express affection, tenderness, care, and compassion for one another were more satisfied with their jobs, committed to their organization, and accountable for their performance. As leaders, what does all this mean? That we internally seek out to build connections with those that are more different from ourselves. That we model curiosity and wonder. When we're leading with love, we embrace our own vulnerability, open acknowledge our imperfections, and share how these allow us to learn and grow. And that we build a culture where the tough love discussions can happen that build ever deep connections between coworkers. Exercising leadership is as much an expression of our potential to make things happen as it is for our humanity. If leadership would be less about love, our workplace would turn into the very same place we fear if the machines were to take over. What then would we be left with ourselves? I think this holds so much truth. I had a leader who was compassionate, and you can see they cared about every employee, and we were one of the highest producing teams. When I went to a different team and had a leader who just was a boss, not a leader, it made me not want to work as hard, and ironically, we were one of the lowest producing teams. Number 6. Great leaders crowd their calendar. Great leaders are obsessed with minutes. They know that every minute wasted or freely given away is another minute that can't be spent coaching their team or on getting results. For best results, throw out your to-do list and schedule everything. Identify your daily most important task and schedule it first thing in the morning, before interruptions and while you are at your best. Pre-schedule time to lead. Schedule your reoccurring weekly one-on-ones, your quarterly town halls, your twice-a-year career path meetings. What about downtime? What about time to think? Yes, schedule that too. All the great leaders schedule time, even if it's nothing time. I personally think this is a great idea to schedule your most important stuff early. I like to schedule things on my calendar, things that I know need to get done. I always say I'll remember, but putting it on a calendar, I know I will get it done. Whenever I heard great leaders crowd their calendar, for some reason, I thought about JR. And no, I'm not trying to get brownie points. I just remember JR saying he's always busy and always has a busy calendar. And he is our leader in this leadership group, and he is doing a good job at that. Number 7. Great leaders play favorites. I know, again, it sounds crazy, but I will explain. In a misguided attempt to be impartial and fair, too many managers treat all their team members the same. But it turns out that's the most unfair thing we can do to the people. And it's the fastest way for you to lose top talent. Instead of treating everyone alike, you need to learn to individualize your leadership approach. You need to take the time to understand each of our team members when it comes to their talents, experiences, attitudes, strengths, and goals. Then you play favorites not based on who you like better, but based on who's earned it. Now, I'm not saying play favorites like don't pick your friends and give them the easiest stuff. What it's saying is that learn each employee and give out the work that they are good at. By doing this, you will get the best outcome. I know that my supervisor, he knows if he gives me something, I will get it done. and he is always giving me work to do. And I do not think by far I am his favorite. I just think he knows that if he gives it to me, it will get done. Number 8. Great leaders reveal everything. In traditional organizations, information flowed up and the decisions came down. But to compete now, we have to replace knowledge is power to sharing is power. In a book called Team of Teams, U.S. Army General Stanley McChrystal explained that radical transparency was the key to defeating Al-Qaeda in Iraq, because it enabled decision making to be pushed to the very lowest levels. In business, radical transparency means sharing everything, including all the financial needed to understand what makes the business work. Keeping secrets at work is hurting employees' productivity, and high-performing organizations need their employees to operate at the top of their game, especially given today's economic climate. A lack of transparency among departments and between managers, employees, and executives is the quickest way to diminish trust at work. Creating an environment of trust affects not only daily interaction among employees, it determines whether your employees will choose to stay at your company for the long haul. Positive teams that trust each other are more likely to be productive, according to the research article published in the Journal of Applied Behavioral Science. EY found that when professionals reported a high level of trust in their employer, they were happier at their job and more likely to stay committed to the company and to be engaged and productive. For example, if there is a change with the VA or something that they can predict will happen, it's better to share everything so everyone can prepare and get knowledge. No one likes to just get news randomly without some sort of knowledge beforehand. Number 9. Great leaders show weakness. Will you tell me about a time you failed? Not too many people will want to share a moment when they failed. Too many old school leaders believe leadership is acting, or we must always wear a mask to project confidence and optimism. The best leaders today realize that authenticity and vulnerability are the fastest ways to earn trust. I'm not talking about striving to shed tears and share fears. That's an inauthentic way of being authentic. Share your past failures as learning experiences. Share the bad news with the good. Drop your mask and be your unique self. Knowing your weakness helps you honor the strengths of others. Honor affirms that others fulfill a purpose. Fulfilling a purpose enhances meaning. Your weakness lets others know they matter. Leaders without weakness are clueless, closed, disconnected, arrogant, frustrated with others, and dangerous. Leaders who don't acknowledge, accept, and deal with their weaknesses are out of touch with themselves and others. Benefits of showing weakness as a leader are knowing your weakness is protection. Leaders who don't acknowledge their weaknesses flounder in the end. Weaknesses tell you what you shouldn't do. If you're the idea person, chances are you desperately need organizers on your team. Creatives, in order to succeed, must embrace and celebrate organizers. But the trouble is, organizers frustrate creatives. Let's just get going. We'll figure it out. Knowing your weakness opens your heart to receive help. Receiving help expands your life and leadership. Knowing your weakness helps you honor the strengths of others. Honor affirms that others fulfill a purpose. Fulfilling a purpose enhances meaning. Some weaknesses enhance strengths. This doesn't only have to mean at work, but it can be anyone in your life or any time. For example, my dad, he would always tell me the times he failed or used to give me advice on some things because he has failed on it. and would tell me it so I wouldn't make the same mistakes, and I would look at my dad as a great leader. Another story: my brother was scared to drive an ATV. He would see me drive it and he wanted to drive it too, but he was scared. And I told him, I said, you know what? I've fallen. I've crashed. You'll be fine. And I just kept encouraging him. I showed him my weakness and he got on it and he drove that ATV. Number 10. Great leaders know leadership is not a choice. The greats all agree that leadership, in a word, is influence. And we know from behavioral psychology that we are always influencing those around us. You influence when you stand up to that bully, but you also influence when you remain as a bystander. You influence when you challenge the idea in the conference room, and also when you remain silent. Leadership isn't a choice, because you are leading, influencing all the time. This means you are leading not just at work, but also at the dinner table and on the sidelines of the soccer field. But are you leading in a positive direction or negative direction? Be mindful of the power as a leader. Remember, lead with intent. Try it all together. Whether you are a frontline supervisor, middle manager, senior executive, these 10 secrets will help you to become both the boss everyone wants to work for and the high achiever every CEO wants to hire, all without drama, stress, and endless hours in the office.